Hello everyone, let's discuss today's The Hindu editorial page. The first article is A War Where Humanity is on Trial Now. In this article, the writer says that on October 7, 2023, the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, Hamas launched a brutal attack on Israel, killing over 1,000 people, mostly civilians, and kidnapping over 200 more. This unprecedented attack was devastating for Israel, as the Indian National Congress strongly believes that violence has no place in a decent world. The Israeli military's indiscriminate operations in and around Gaza have led to thousands of deaths, including large numbers of innocent children, women, and men. The Israeli state is now focused on exacting revenge from a population that is largely as helpless as it is blameless. The destructive might of one of the world's most potent military arsenals is being unleashed upon children, women, and men who have been at the heart of decades of discrimination and suffering. The denial of water, food, and electricity is no less than the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. The outside world, particularly those who want to help, is largely blocked out of Gaza, with relief and aid reaching the needy in a tiny trickle and not on the scale that is necessary. Not only is it inhumane but also illegal in international law. Very few Gazans are untouched by the violence. They are bounded up on a small, densely populated strip of territory with nothing to fall back on. Even the occupied West Bank has flared up and the conflict is widening. The prospects for the future are ominous. Senior Israeli officials have spoken of destroying and depopulating large parts of Gaza, and the Israeli defense minister has referred to Palestinians as human animals. This dehumanizing language is shocking, coming from the descendants of those who themselves were victims of the Holocaust. Humanity is on trial now. We were collectively diminished by the brutal attacks on Israel. We are now all diminished by Israel's disproportionate and equally brutal response. How many more lives will have to be taken before our collective conscience is stirred and awakened? The Israeli government is making a grievous error in equating the actions of Hamas with the Palestinian people. In its determination to destroy Hamas, it has unleashed indiscriminate death and destruction against the ordinary people of Gaza. Even if the long history of the suffering of the Palestinians is ignored, what logic can a whole population be held responsible for the actions of a few? The complex problems faced by Palestinians, rooted in a troubled imperial history orchestrated by outside powers, can only be solved through dialogue. Israel's unremitting blockade for over a decade and a half has reduced Gaza to an open-air prison. The next article is Give Up Impropriety, Demonstrate Impartiality. In this article, the writer says that the Chief Justice of India expressed concern over the inaction of the Maharashtra Assembly Speaker regarding the disqualification nominations of its members that have been pending since July 2022. The Speaker is required to act in an impartial manner, but the functioning of this institution has left much to be desired. The Speaker's office emerged in medieval Britain when the House of Commons needed a spokesman in their dealings with the King. Since the middle of the 19th century, the Speaker has been considered an impartial chairman of the House of Commons. They are the custodians of the rights and privileges of the House, its committees, and its members. Under the Indian Constitution, the Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly elect two members to be the Speaker and Deputy Speaker, respectively. Speakers perform two important functions: certifying a bill to be a money bill, over which the Rajya Sabha Legislative Council have a limited role, and deciding on disqualification under the 10th schedule for defection. The Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly rules provide for suspension of members for misconduct in the House. However, it has been noticed that the speakers and the houses misuse these provisions more often than not against the opposition members. In recent instances, the Congress party leader Adhir Ranjan Chaudhuri was swiftly suspended for his remarks against the Prime Minister, but no swift action has been forthcoming against a member of the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, member Ramesh Biduri, for passing communal strikes against the Bahujan Samaj Party, Member of Parliament, Danish Ali. The Maharashtra Assembly suspended 12 BJP MLAs unconstitutionally for a year in July 2021, later set aside by the Supreme Court of India. The Speaker is the authority to refer bills introduced to the parliamentary standing committees, but even significant bills that require detailed scrutiny are not referred to such committees. Less than 25% of bills referred to committees in the Lok Sabha during 2014 to 2023, and while such partisanship affects robust parliamentary functioning, it is their role in deciding disqualification nominations that can derail the stability of elected governments. French writer Jean-Baptiste Alphonse Carr's clairvoyance suggests that the more things change, the more they stay the same, which is a line that suits Indian politics even today, where elected representatives find ingenious methods to circumvent the anti-defection law. The next article is, Time and Change Panel should be given more time to study new criminal laws. In this article, the writer says that the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs has postponed the adoption of a draft report on 3 bills aimed at replacing existing criminal laws. The report is said to have at least 3 dissenting notes, mainly pertaining to the text of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which will replace the Indian Penal Code, and the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, which will come in place of the Code of Criminal Procedure. There appears to be unanimity on the 3rd bill, the Bharatiya Sakshya Bill, the one in lieu of the Indian Evidence Act. The committee's deliberations began on August 24th and held only 12 sittings, raising questions about the adequacy of the scrutiny. The whole point of introducing these new criminal codes was to bring about a major overhaul of a body of law deemed too colonial in orientation. Any meaningful study of these bills should involve wide consultations among stakeholders across the country. The panel's next meeting is scheduled for November 6th. It would be unwise to treat the current deferment as a brief interlude to give more time to panel members to study the draft report. The government seems keen on getting the bills introduced in Parliament and passed during the winter session. However, there are areas that may require deeper scrutiny, such as the scope for misuse in the new definitions, the desire for new offenses like hate speech, and whether there is further scope for procedural reform in the criminal justice system. The next article is from Mint newspaper, and the article is, "The world must fight inequality to safeguard ideals of democracy." In this article, the writer says that the global political climate has become increasingly volatile due to populist forces, deepening social divides, and the rapid advance of digital technologies. Economic inequality has increased steadily between 1820 and 1910, but data shows that economic disparities have reached intolerable levels, with the world's richest 1% gaining 38% of the increase in global wealth between 1995 and 2021, compared to just 2% for the bottom 50%. The concentration of wealth continues to increase, with global wealth growing by 3.2% annually between 1995 and 2021. The extreme levels of inequality and social injustice we tolerated will likely shock future generations, just as our ancestors' acceptance of practices like slavery and feudalism was horrified by. The political implications of today's economic disparities often go unnoticed, as they undermine democracy in 2 main ways. The globalization of finance and supply chains has enabled wealthy and powerful countries to affect people far beyond their borders, and the concentration of wealth in a few hands is anathema to democracy. Advances in generative AI can help curb inequality. Poorly designed interventions can cause damage, but by combining moral intentions with thoughtful design, such policies can yield significant returns. One strategy is using a commodity tax to cap the profit of a group of companies, heightening competition within the group and neutralizing the incentive to cut production. Additionally, we must recognize that what matters most to people, including the wealthiest, is relative rather than absolute inequality. Thus, significant taxes on the rich without reducing their incentives can be imposed without reducing their incentives, provided they maintain their relative standing. In conclusion, pursuing greater equality without reducing incentives is entirely feasible. By mitigating inequality and curbing the outsized influence of a few ultra-wealthy individuals, we can establish a fairer society and save democracy. The next article is from Business Standard newspaper, that is, Solving Intermittency of Renewables. In this article, the writer says that in every business, there is a chain of production, transportation, storage, and retailing. There are 8 industries: tomatoes, refrigeration trucks, storage, tomato puree, tomato paste, and retailing. Each industry has different capabilities and operating profit margins, making it difficult for a central planner to unify them. In the field of electricity, traditional thinking suggests 3 distinct businesses: generation, transmission, and retailing. However, India needs to deploy the idea that prices fluctuate to clear the gap between supply and demand. High demand in the evening peak would drive up the price, creating incentives for users to buy less. Mobile apps that show the current price of electricity for each buyer can encourage buying of air conditioners when prices are high. On the production side, the prospect of making good profits for an hour or 2 a day will motivate investment in storage and wind. The fluctuations of electricity prices will motivate private persons who build energy storage companies. Energy technology is in a state of flux, with new ideas on generation and storage coming up every day. Private persons know how to take risks and live and die by the fluctuations of consumer preferences and technological advances. With a modest pace of renewables investment and a low pace of fossil fuel investment, there will be major problems in the electricity system under conditions of strong economic growth. Electricity policymakers need to move now to ward off bad scenarios in coming years. First, the price system needs to work, as opposed to the tidy bureaucracies of the traditional electricity system, as a way to unleash private energy, innovation, and risk-taking. The paradigm of regulated rates of return needs to be thought afresh to allow for risk-taking and account for uncertainty. In the 20th century, the electricity system of many countries purred along with low risk, and firms in the sector were utilities with regulated rates of return. In the 21st century, this is a world of high risk, where many projects will fail, and imposing traditional low regulated rates of return will be unfair.